you're worried about not being able to afford the pharmaceutical drugs you need to stay alive, have no fear. Businessman Mark Cuban is here to rescue you. At least that's what he would like you to believe with his latest business venture. So this was something that one of our members had recently asked me about, and I knew nothing about it until recently when I decided to look into it and really understand what Mark Cuban is up to here. Now, the Mark Cuban Cost Plus drug company will offer more than 100 generic drugs that will be purchased directly from the manufacturers and sold online with just a 15% markup across the board and a small pharmacist fee. So yes, Mark Cuban has introduced his online drug company, essentially his online pharmacy is a better way of putting it. And the whole idea behind it is, I'm gonna cut the middlemen out. We're gonna buy directly from the manufacturer, and then we're gonna sell it to you for the low price of just a 15% markup and a pharmacist fee. Now, it sounds all good and dandy for now, okay? The Mark Cuban Cost Plus drug company does not process insurance claims. So if you're hoping your insurance pays for the drugs you purchase off this website, that ain't gonna happen. And it also requires its customers to pay out of pocket, but the complete prices that they're offering are lower than many co-pays that insurance companies currently require. Now, of course, I'm not gonna take a media platform or anyone in corporate news at face value. I wanted to look into this myself. And look, this was just launched, and for now, it looks like the prices are actually a lot more affordable. Remember, we're talking about 100 generic drugs, so it's very likely that some of the drugs that you or a family member might need aren't even included on the website. But here's what we do know of some of the drugs that are on the website as of today. A common cholesterol medication that goes for $55 will be sold on Cuban's site for $4. Sounds pretty good, right? And why is Mark Cuban doing this? Well, Mark Cuban's an entrepreneur. What do entrepreneurs look to do? They're looking to launch businesses and make money, but he claims that's not what this is about. Cuban told Forbes last year, when he originally became involved in the creation of a low cost drug company, that he wanted to show capitalism can be compassionate. And what I find so fascinating about that statement is how easily members of corporate media just regurgitate it verbatim. In fact, here's an example. Let's watch the video.
You know, I think a lot of people don't kind of know how it might work in other countries, that in countries like the UK, like Canada, France, the government comes in and negotiates the price, right? There's a government body that does that. That may make a capitalist like you, Mark, shudder a little bit. And I know that one of the things that you wanted to prove is that capitalism can be compassionate here. So I want you to talk to us about costplusdrugs.com.
We discussed putting together a pharmacy specifically for generic drugs, where we go out and we buy them from the same manufacturers that others are buying from, but really keep our costs low and just sell it at a 15% markup.
Compassionate capitalism. Now, when one of our viewers asked me to share my thoughts on this story, before I had actually read into it or really understood what it was about, the question was, what do you think? Is this a good thing or is this a scam? And what I want you guys to understand about capitalism is the system and what the incentives and disincentives are, how the system works, right? So compassionate capitalism doesn't really make sense because capitalism isn't about compassion. It's not about morality. The system is about maximizing profits. And as we know, the executives, the business owners have a what? A fiduciary responsibility to return on the investor's investment into the company, to provide a return on that investment. And so the question is, all right, cool, he launched this. Is this some sort of nonprofit? Obviously not. He's referring to it as compassionate capitalism, which means that there are funders, right? And by the way, no outlet that reported on this touched on what I'm about to talk about at all. Not even for a second. Everyone's like, oh, Mark Cuban, he's such a good guy. He's able to do what Congress can't do. And by the way, Congress, I'm not giving them any brownie points. They don't get any cookies. Congress hasn't done anything in regard to making pharmaceutical drugs affordable for Americans. They can't even allow for Medicare to negotiate drug prices directly with pharmaceutical companies because they're so beholden to the private pharmaceutical companies. They take the legalized bribes and then they do the pharmaceutical companies' bidding. We know that. However, Mark Cuban, not the solution. Why? Because there's a profit motive always when it comes to capitalism. For now, the prices look great. The prices look cheap. Looks like it's affordable. But let's not forget about the fact that, let's go to this next graphic. Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company actually does take some money. Now, Mark Cuban Cost Plus Drug Company has not announced any IPO plans as of now, making it a private company. Hence, retail investors will not be able to buy stock yet and may have to wait for the company to go public. So that's not even out of the question yet. So it's a private company, but that doesn't mean that there aren't investors. It's actually backed by venture capitalists. So let's take a look at the next graphic, which will give you an overview of the company. It says that it was founded in 2016. I'll tell you why in just a second. It actually had a different name with the same scheme behind it. But as you can see, the latest deal amount, $1.3 million, it has 3 investors. So there are 3 individuals who have invested a considerable amount of money to launch this business. At the end of the day, it is a business. Now, did those 3 investors provide the seed money for this out of the kindness of their own hearts, or are they expecting a return on their investment? And in order to get a return on that investment, what do you need to do as a business owner? Cut costs, maximize profits. So for now, they have 5 employees, according to this overview. They claim that they're gonna continue to keep their costs low. But if you're planning to be the solution to a broken system that puts profits over people, how is this one small company with 5 employees gonna provide the pharmaceutical drugs necessary to keep Americans alive? You're gonna have to hire more people. Labor ends up becoming the most expensive part of running the business. That cuts into profits. Are they gonna go public? It seems like it's something that's being considered. It's not about whether Mark Cuban is a good guy or bad guy. It's about how the system is supposed to work. That's what capitalism is. They need to return on that investment. That seed money wasn't provided out of the goodness of their own hearts. If it was, this wouldn't be a company. This wouldn't be identified as a capitalistic venture. You guys get what I'm saying? So just think about all those Silicon Valley companies, all of those app-based companies that came out with all these great products like, oh, Uber's so great, Lyft is so great. I'm able to use an app and all of a sudden there's a car that shows up at my front door and takes me from point A to point B at a very, very low cost. What happened with that? They wanted to monopolize the market, and as soon as they got close to it, the investors stopped subsidizing the ride sharing app. They stopped partly paying for each ride that you take with either Uber or Lyft or whatever other app-based program you're using. So my point is, it might start off as something that looks shiny and new and exciting, but pay attention to the system that's propping it up, because all you need to really look at is what that system forces the executives at that company to do: maximize profits, because they literally have a fiduciary responsibility to do so. So who knows, they might prove me wrong. Compassionate capitalism is not something that I'll ever buy into. Because again, it's not about compassion, it's about how the system works.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.